Good evening from Washington, D.C. I'm Michael Steele, in for Chris Hayes. Now, as a real estate developer, Donald Trump loved to put his name on OPB, other people's buildings. Now, he's about to pull off a similar rebranding on the Republican National Committee. And it's going to end up pretty much like his failed Atlantic City casino. After forcing one-time ally Ronna McDaniel out as RNC chair, Trump endorsed his own daughter-in-law for co-chair. Today, Lara Trump spoke at CPAC, laying out her plan.
Ladies and gentlemen, I come bearing good news here today, because less than 9 months away from changing all that, we will see Donald J. Trump elected as the 47th president.
By going all in on its capitulation to Trump, the party of fiscal responsibility is making an atrocious investment. Trump's rise has led to a diminished Republican Party, electorally, financially, and in fidelity to conservative values. Trump has led the Republican Party on an embarrassing losing streak, despite promises the GOP would, quote, get tired of winning. A few things to keep in mind. The party is losing money, ending last year with its lowest fundraising totals in a decade. Lara Trump has not ruled out paying her father-in-law's mounting legal bills. Donald Trump is the ultimate rhino. Yeah, that's right, he's a rhino, Republican in name only. Because as president, Trump abandoned free trade, racked up huge deficits, and cozied up to authoritarians. And for nearly a decade, the Republican Party has been consumed by Trump's chaos, division, grifters, and conspiracy theories. Now it appears this once great party wants more of the same. Yeah, so much for winning. I'm joined now by Sabrina Siddiqui, a White House reporter for The Wall Street Journal, McKay Coppins, a staff writer for The Atlantic, and Lucy Caldwell, a veteran Republican strategist who served as campaign manager for former Illinois Congressman and my buddy Joe Walsh. Thank you all for being here. So, Lucy, I want to begin with you on this one. Could you give us some sense, just some inkling of a sense, of how Donald Trump managed this complete takeover of the RNC now, and what it says about the party currently and going forward?
Well, Michael, of course, you know about this better than anyone based on your own record. And you know by your own record that this is really something's gone wrong. After Donald Trump became president, he did something kind of unprecedented. He actually went about systematically removing state party chairs throughout the country, really shoring up the committee to make sure that, like his base, it was full of loyalists. I think it's easy in an episode like this to lose sight of what it is that a national party does. What does the Republican National Committee do, or what is it supposed to do? It's supposed to recruit candidates, create data and technology resources for candidates. It's supposed to build up volunteer bases. It's supposed to create infrastructure to make it easier for candidates to win, to recruit high-quality candidates, to make them successful. In the Trump era, we've seen that the Republican committee is focused on doing the opposite. And as Lara Trump herself said this week, now they're even contemplating paying Donald Trump's legal bills. That would be, sort of in line with Trump doing things like using campaign funds to pay $250,000 a year to his wife's hairstylist. So it's true that behind the scenes, maybe they have a slightly more serious person in Michael Whatley, who's the chair of the North Carolina Republican Party, who is Trump's pick for chair. But Lara Trump should be nowhere near the co-chairship of the RNC. And I never thought I would say this, but I think her talents would actually be better spent recording covers of Tom Petty songs, and she's not very good at that either.
Well, there is that. Sabrina, I think there are a couple of interesting points here, particularly around the money piece. I mean, given where the party is financially right now, what have you discovered from your reporting or learning from your reporting about whether or not the party is actually going to go through with paying these bills? Can they really afford to pay the bills and win elections?
Well, the RNC certainly does not have the money to pay former President Trump's legal bills. One of the main problems that they've had is that a lot of donors have not actually been willing to cut large checks to the RNC, in part because they don't want that money going to former President Trump. And so I don't think that Lara Trump's comments are going to help with their fundraising capabilities, at least with a faction of the Republican donors, because that is a big concern that that money is going to be used for his extensive legal bills rather than propping up other Republican candidates and just the broader pursuit, not just of taking back the White House, but also of gains in Congress. But we've seen this Trumpification of the entire Republican political apparatus that's been really years in the making. I mean, fealty to Trump has actually been a hallmark of the RNC, even under, its soon to be outgoing leadership. I mean, Ronna McDaniel really took every possible step to appease former President Trump, now candidate Trump. It was just that, she went on with holding the debates. That was one of the sort of, and didn't maybe do enough in his eyes to go after what he said was election fraud, and we all know was actually a lie and a free and fair election. So, I don't think that, no matter what the RNC says about paying or not paying his legal bills, or the Trump campaign suggesting that they won't use RNC to pay his legal bills. I think we know that, the RNC and all of the Republican political apparatus would very much be used to do whatever Trump tells them to do.
At least 3 fertility clinics in Alabama have now paused in vitro fertilization, or IVF, after the Alabama Supreme Court ruled that frozen embryos in a lab have the same rights as children. The fallout sending shockwaves throughout the state and sending Republican politicians scrambling. You see, IVF is extremely popular. I mean, extremely popular. As Kellyanne Conway's own polling firm found, 86% of all voters support access to IVF, including 78% of self-identified pro-life advocates and 83% of evangelical Christians. So it's no wonder Nikki Haley is now desperately trying to backpedal after agreeing with the Alabama Supreme Court ruling that embryos are babies. Today, she says IVF should still be available, because if there's one place Republican politicians do not want to be in an election year, it's on the losing side of a very popular issue. Tara Setmayer worked as a GOP communications director on Capitol Hill. She is now a senior advisor for the Lincoln Project. She joins me now. Tara, it is so good to have you here tonight. I want to play for you a little bit of Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville on that ruling.
Do you have a reaction to the Alabama Supreme Court ruling on the fact that embryos are children?
Yeah, I was all for it. We need to have more kids. We need to have an opportunity to do that. And I thought this was the right thing to do. But
IVF is used to have more children, and right now IVF services are paused at some of the clinics in Alabama. Aren't you concerned that this could impact people who are trying to have kids?
Well, that's for another conversation.
I think that conversation is now, Tara. How is this Alabama ruling and the threat to IVF roiling the Republican politics as you see it right now?
Well, the idiocy of Senator Tuberville is palpable and just extraordinary at times. This is not the only time he's sounded like an absolute moron, and he's paid for by the taxpayers of Alabama. Listen, this is another example of a kryptonite issue for Republicans. They know that the majority of the American people are pro-choice, and the overwhelming majority of people are pro-IVF, including their own constituents in the Republican Party, including the evangelicals who overwhelmingly support IVF. There have been 8 million babies born through IVF in this country. So according to this Alabama Supreme Court ruling, I guess then all of those babies and all of those families who have had the gift of life thanks to this technology should not have been born. And all of those people who are looking forward to having children that suffer from infertility, which is over 6 million women in this country, they just shouldn't have that opportunity. Republicans do not want to have this discussion, because if I'm the Democrats, I'm coming out and showcasing all of the families in my district or state or in a national election that have had successful IVF pregnancies, and say to them, I challenge Republicans to say that these children shouldn't have had an opportunity at life. I mean, the extremism now is really beginning, I think, to sink in for some people, particularly women across this country who feel as though they are under attack. And they are. The rights of women in this country are under attack daily, and the Republican Party is at the helm of it.
Well, and you had yesterday Nikki Haley saying that she agreed with the Alabama Supreme Court that embryos are children, but later on trying to clarify her remarks and now saying IVF should be available. What are your thoughts on, as an example of, to your point, this is a space Republicans just don't want to be in?
Well, Nikki Haley flip-flopping on an issue and having to backpedal and then explain again, it's just another day that ends in Y. This is part of the weakness of her candidacy. And this is coming from someone who used artificial reproductive technology to have her own child. So these people are just unbelievable at times. And I'm glad that we're pointing this out. She knows that this is not an issue they want to argue. She knows that the idea of banning IVF is out of the mainstream, so she had to clarify. She was trying to cater to Republican primary voters who are on the extreme, out of the mainstream on this, and then realize, uh-oh, wait a minute, that's not the right answer. So I need to keep myself honest in this and clarify. Look, Republican strategists across the country know that the abortion issue, the women's rights issue, is a losing one for them. And there are over a dozen states that have abortion on the ballot this year for referendums. And in those swing states where the abortion issue comes up, places like Michigan, Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, they do not want to have women coming out in large numbers, particularly Republican women, pro-choice women, and voting as single-issue voters on this, because that could swing the election for Democrats. Republicans know this. That's why Kellyanne Conway put that memo out, trying to tell them, hey, guys, you don't want this issue front and center. It's a loser for us, and it should be. Women's rights should not be under attack in 2024. This is not an episode of The Handmaid's Tale. But if you empower these people and let them get voted into office, it will be.
Tara Setmayer, always bringing it. Appreciate you. Thank you so much, Tara. If you want to know what Trump campaign staffers think about you, just watch Fox News, like this weekend when they gushed over Donald Trump's new ploy for money, a limited edition series of gaudy gold $400 Trump sneakers. And like they always do on Fox, somebody said the quiet part out loud on what the big sneaker strategy is really all about.
Even the sneaker thing. I was on social media last night. Very interesting. As you see black support eroding from Joe Biden, this is connecting with black America because they love sneakers. They're into sneakers. They love this is a big deal, certainly in the inner city. So when you have Trump roll out his sneaker line, they're like, wait a minute, this is cool. He's reaching them on a level that defies and is above politics. The culture always trumps politics. And Trump understands culture like no politician I've ever seen.
Seriously? Why didn't I think of this when I ran the RNC? Let's see. Black folks love sneakers, and we can paint them gold. This can't miss. Trust me, it's a big miss. And they ugly as hell. Angela Carasone watches a lot of Fox as the president and CEO of Media Matters for America, and he joins me now. $400 kicks? Gold? Are they really this cynical over there at Fox?
Yeah, and this same guy, about a year ago when Trump's mugshot came out, said that black people can, quote, relate to Donald Trump now, and that it was actually going to increase his black support because he had, quote, street cred. This is the same guy.
Yeah.
So in some way, this is not just a one-off. This is part of a pattern from him and Fox News more broadly.
Yeah, the mugshot. Yeah, I guess that works for us, too. We're used to seeing Fox do these types of things. We're used to seeing them demonize minorities and sort of play up the sort of racial angle on these things. It gets worse each time, though, seemingly. Their audience really sucks this stuff in and just sort of takes it and goes, yeah, this will work. Black people will now follow Donald Trump because they'll get a pair of sneakers.
Yeah, it's weird because they tend to have it both ways. Most of the time, they're demonizing black people, right? So just a few weeks ago, they actually blamed the 737, the Boeing door that popped out. They blamed that on Boeing allowing too many black people to work on airplanes. That was not just one Fox News show. That was an entire day of Fox News coverage. Amazing. That was an argument that they made, and their audience completely consumed it. And that's a reflection of what they say to them every day. But then they have these one-offs where they actually get excited about the idea and this false narrative that somehow Trump is capturing, all sorts of people across the country, that it's not just limited to his MAGA support base.
So here's some racist narratives Fox passed along just off the top of my head. Birtherism, Obama phones, migrant caravans, stealing jobs. They just had to apologize for a live broadcast showing the Guardian Angels roughing up a guy they said was a migrant who actually is from the Bronx. What'd I miss?
Most recently, it's claims that they are trying to secretly replace the national anthem. That's a big part of it, that they've been sort of...
Oh, it's because we sing the national black
anthem. And it's part of a larger conspiracy to dilute white power. That's right. It is a huge problem, and they're really worried about this because they've heard it played a lot more regularly, and they think there's some conspiracy going on. They tie them into the sort of the larger white genocide great replacement theory, and in sort of the Fox News world, they're actually the henchmen for the great powers, mostly Jewish people that are actually helping bring in all the immigrants. They're helping perpetuate this through their sports and their culture. So those are the two big ones more recently that you've missed at Fox.
Somehow it amazes me that people actually believe that, singing the national black anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing, is threatening to white life here in America. I want to move on a little bit further into the abyss with the My Pillow guy. He of election-denying fame, Mike Lindell, used ads that basically were all over the network, offering $5 million to anyone who could, go out there and disprove his election fraud claims. Well, guess what? He caught the car.
He did.
Someone actually disproved his claims, and now he's doing the backstroke and trying to get a judge to get him off the hook. What's wrong here? And what does that say that he thought he could actually get away with the big lie like that?
I mean, part of it is that he got high on his own supply. I mean, there was he believed to a degree that he could manifest this through enough resources. And why wouldn't he believe that? He was Fox's single largest advertiser for years. And the result of that was just through force of will, he was able to push all kinds of nonsensical conspiracies and chicanery, not just into Fox, but into the right-wing echo chamber. So he had a track record of using his money and his resources to manifest false narratives into reality. And Trump was a conduit for that. So in this instance, he gets out there and says, nobody can prove me wrong, $5 million. And he just assumes that he can bluster and might make his right way through it.
Let's take a little listen of Mr. Lindell.
And the media is all down at that end, just attacking me from around the world. But I'm welcoming it. I want to tell them, hey, we have to get rid of the electronic voting machines that go to paper ballots hand counted. And I do want to say, Steve, My Pillow, thanks all of you. We put our bathrobes on sale, 100% USA Supima cotton.
The grift is always on.
It is.
The grift is always on. No matter how bad it gets, I got a grift. I mean, that seems to be the end game at the end of the day. That, I've got this audience, and I'm going to lie to them, and they're going to give me cash.
I mean, part of what's happening is that because of what we talked about earlier, they become increasingly less commercially viable because of their extremism. They have to become a closed system, just like Alex Jones, right? He tells people that there's all this estrogen in the water, and you have to buy these eye drops to put into your drinks that takes the estrogen out of it. It's a closed system, and the rest of the right-wing media is following suit. Lindell is just one part of that puzzle.
Just one part of it.